Hello, friends. Welcome to My Good Woman, the podcast for new and future female leaders. I'm your host, Dawn Andrews, a happily married hockey mom and the founder and CEO of Free Range Thinking Business Strategy Consulting. Grab a seat at the table with me each week for candid conversations with culture-shifting, glass-ceiling-busting, trailblazing women leading impactful enterprises. We discuss what makes them tick, how they get it all done, and actionable strategies to help you lead with confidence and grow the visibility, reach, and revenue of your business. We're classy ladies, but we don't bleep the swear words. Listener discretion is advised. My good woman, buckle up. I am a super fan of the iconic, influential woman I'm about to share with you. It's no secret, it's tough to get noticed in Hollywood, and my guest has made a career in this business, turning heads and challenging convention for top-notch creative talent. Today, I'm speaking with the trailblazing, creative, and funny Carrie Byalick, a longtime entertainment industry publicist and manager who was recently named president of Spartina, Stephen Colbert's production company. But it's not just her professional accomplishments that make her special. Carrie continues to inspire me with her dedication to her team, being a kind leader in a tough industry, and her 1.8-second response time to text messages. And Spartina is Carrie's second startup. Before Spartina, she launched and ran her own talent management firm, B Company, with a roster of clients that included America Ferrera, Josh Radnor, Jessica Williams, and Zoe Chow. Prior to B Company, Carrie was a senior VP at ID New York, where she was one of the entertainment industry's most respected and sought-after media and publicity strategists. Leveraging her badass media management and expertise, she played an integral role in promoting and planning the careers of her clients Andy Samberg, The Lonely Island, Amy Schumer, Paul Giamatti, Greg Kinnear, Bette Midler, Vera Farmiga, Billy Eichner, Oliver Platt, Sam Rockwell, Noah Baumbach, Whitney Cummings, Greta Gerwig, Ed Helms, Peter Sarsgaard, and more. In this absolutely fun episode, we talked about finding the confidence to start your own thing in the entertainment industry twice, handling comparative pressure, facing down obstacles, and not apologizing for who you are, balancing high demands on your time while still finding time to live a life, her genius method to get to inbox zero. I've done it, it works. And she also shares stories about the women that lift her up. Whether you're just starting out or you've been in business for years, there is something here for you. So grab your cup of tea and tune in. Enjoy my conversation with Carrie Byalick. Hi, you're here.
Hi,
It's
I'm here.
delightful.
It is delightful. It's already going well.
Best Monday ever.
Yes. I'm determined to make every Monday less Monday-ish.
I love that, and my 12-year-old would really appreciate that too. He gets horrible cases of the Mondays. We have to.
Well, the
we have to work
Sunday,
that out.
it starts Sunday night, and then you just have dread. And I think what we should just try to instill is like, what if something really amazing, unexpected, and joyful happens on a Monday?
Amen to that.
And then you look forward to Mondays.
I love it. See, I think we can just mic drop there. Take my important bullet point takeaway. The takeaway from the episode. There it is. We don't have to do anything else.
Great. This has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Best 2 minutes ever. Actually, 1 minute and 14 seconds.
Yeah, 1:14.
Keeping it tight.
It's your new favorite podcast, ladies and gents.
Okay, so I would love to share your origin story a little bit with people.
Okay.
And what I've noticed with women, especially with women in business, is if they're reaching out to start the next thing, their confidence is key. But people want everything to be perfect. They want it to be pretty and polished before they actually try. And the irony of that is that doesn't, doing everything on your own behind the scenes does not build your confidence. And then you take it out to the world and all the assumptions that you have may or may not match reality. And that gives you a hit to your confidence as well. And I happen to have just a little bit of inside information on you. So knowing that you were at IDPR working for somebody, working as an employee, working for somebody else for 18 years. What gave you the confidence to make the leap, to go out on your own and start B Company?
Well, speaking to what you first said, just about like being camera ready and being perfect in other people's version of what's perfect and what's labeled as such, is I will say, like, I am grateful that not only in the beginning of my career, but just in my youth and in my junior high school and my high school and my college, and even in the beginning of my career and through the 90s and early aughts, as they call them, but that I didn't have filters and Instagram and comparative pressure, because comparative pressure always exists. You could always be in school growing up and look over and be like, I wish I had that. I wish I was that. I wish I had less of this and more of whatever XYZ. And I think it's hard enough being a human being, comparing yourself without noise and filters and imagery and advertisements and things convincing yourself you didn't even know you thought you needed in order to be a better, thinner, prettier, smarter, more successful version of what already is all of those things. And so I'm grateful, I will say, that up until my career and then throughout the roots of my career in the entertainment industry, that I didn't have any of that, because I probably would have had more of less my eyes on my own paper and more of, but if I only had what she has and what she has and what she has, then I'd be the she I'm supposed to be. And I never was like that. I always I have to thank my gut and my confidence in myself that I never knew all the things, but I was able to always identify like what I was good at. And there are tons of stuff that I'm still not good at. And that when I don't know what I'm doing, I'm the first to raise my hand and say, I actually don't know who would know, because I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And I think that's a huge part of like anyone's success, is identifying that. But just getting back to how I made the leap, I had gotten to a point in my career. So as you mentioned, I was a publicist mainly for actors, and then sort of branched out into hybrids as we know them, multifaceted, multi-talented people who also wrote, who also directed, who also produced, who did every aspect of entertainment. And I found a real niche in my career with really smart, intelligent, what was known as the New York actor, simultaneous to really smart, hilarious people. So I had running parallels in my career as a publicist, which was, if you're a comedy person, Carrie's your publicist. Like if you want a publicist in New York, based in New York, who knows comedy, who knows how to speak comedy and speak to comedians, like that's who you go to. And the same thing for if you want your Peter Sarsgaards and your Paul Giamattis and your Sammy Rockwells and your brilliant talent, your Oliver Platts, Carrie's also your person. So there's no like, how'd you do that? I can't speak to that, because that's just years of just like figuring it out and tapping into different human beings' psyche, I think, and what that person needs out of what I can provide and the skill set that I have and the skill set that I learned. I got to a point in my career, almost 20 years in of being a publicist, where I was itching for something different. I wanted to be a contributor to the choices that my clients were making and not just an enhancer of the existing work that they had. So I started to sort of sniff around and say like, well, what would my options be if I made this leap, which is always terrifying. To make any change, and I will just say this as like any kind of blanket statement, is to make any change is scary. To make any change will give you back a lot. It will open your eyes. It will give you a new birth. It will give you a new perspective. So terrifying, rewarding. And if you, and there's no like, what's a good change? Any change is terrifying and rewarding. So I will say that I was itching for that terrifying, rewarding symbiosis, and the belief in myself, and knowing that, well, if I had just one person who would look at me and say, I see you as a manager, not just a publicist, then I could then go, okay, I'm a manager. And at the time I had a lot of success with a handful of clients that I know I was instrumental in, not just their publicity, but in their strategizing of what their career was looking like from, as they say, soup to nuts. And I know that I had an instrumental drive and vision to why that person was where they were at in their career. And I felt the confidence that I had that because I was getting that information from them. I'm so glad you were able to give me that advice, because without that advice, I wouldn't have done X, Y, Z or whatever. And it wasn't just, you should wear this on the cover of Vogue, that I was able to secure you. It was a lot of real detail-oriented, big picture strategy, forecasting 5 years from now, where are you? I see you as this. You may not see yourself, but I've always seen that for you. And so I had that innately, and I believed in myself that I could do that. So I started exploring, well, if not a publicist, then what would I want to do? Because I really wanted to stay in this business. I do love this business. And I feel comfortable and right it being a part of the mechanics of this business. So I knew all those things. And I just, once I had one client look at me and say, I see you that way, I said, great, I see myself that way. And then began my journey into, okay, well, what would it take to do this? I asked around. I had a lot of lovely people in the community approaching me, offering me jobs to be a manager at their very successful companies. And that was intimidating to me, oddly more so than me going out on my own and creating a business, because at least if I did that, it would be my own exploration of something new with my rules, with my font, with my DNA, with my taste and my way of how I would do things. And it really took one client. It took America Ferrera to look at me and say, I see you as that. I see you as a manager. You are already doing it. And I went, okay, well, you see me as that, then I am that. And so after fact finding and getting the confidence and asking, a council of people, because I also think that's really important to have a council of people, whether that's friends, family, and then mentors and community in a business that you've grown up in, to say to you, you can do this and here's why. You don't need 10 people. You need a handful of people. It's that Lady Gaga thing that she said about A Star is Born, of one person. But it is true. If you have enough people who you trust in your circle, personally and professionally, to convince you that making a life decision so bold as to start your own business won't be a mistake, you do it. And is it scary? Yes. Of course it's scary. For me at that time, it was make a change or not be happy. And so for me, I really wanted to find happiness and a new chapter. And I knew that this was the way to do it because I took a bet on myself. And if all else failed, I would call one of the many lovely, generous people in a business filled with lovely, generous people. You just have to look, who offered me opportunity. And I went, okay, let me try this first. And if this doesn't work, fall back on all the good that I worked very hard in creating in the landscape of a business that I grew up in. So that's a long answer to tell you that it was confidence in myself, being seen by someone who was giving me the keys, saying, I trust you, here are the keys. And then figuring it out from there.
Yeah, but there's so many good nuggets in there. I hope people picked them up along the way, but I'm gonna go back and put them in the basket.
Okay, please do. You're good at that.
Like what I really noticed is that you, first of all, you looked at what was possible for yourself. You identified that where you were going or where you were presently wasn't going to cut it for you anymore. So there was a recognition of, I can stay here. It's safe. It's okay. I'm achieving, I'm doing well with this, but it's not really giving me any satisfaction. So that's the first piece of letting go to me, is just acknowledging that where you are now is good enough, but it's not all that you want it to be. And
that's
then
right.
Borrowing the shine. So we're not the best accurate reflections of ourselves. We do not mirror ourselves very well. I think it's particularly true with women. Like, we're constantly comparative, like you said at the top of the call. So we're not the best reflections. And so you found in your circle of people who could reflect back to you and stand in the place of the future you and reflect it back to you in advance, so that you let go of the one side, I'm not satisfied here, and you have something to walk towards because your friends are already waiting there for you. They see you in that role. So you can walk towards it. And I also appreciate that you, even in making that choice and letting go and drifting to this next destination, that you realize you still could come back to whatever it was. Like, if for some reason it was a mistake or the choice wasn't great, you could always return because you had that in your back pocket. And those three things I feel like are just, it's like a little booster shot of confidence that people can take away, even if they haven't done the thing yet.
I always say, like, my mom gives me the best advice, and she always says, like, write it down. She's a big fan of the legal pad, make a pro con list, don't type it, write it out. and something about your own handwriting and seeing pro con. And if you can compare it on paper and say like, well, I'll be fine because look at all the reasons why I would do this. I mean, it's such basic, it seems basic advice, but it's actually quite deep, because you coming up with your why and your why not isn't someone else's idea of why you'd be good at something or why you wouldn't, or someone else's perception of why you could do something and why you can't. It comes from you. And yes, it takes courage. I mean, it's terrifying, but again, like I referenced earlier, like there's reward in taking a leap. And even if you have just one cushion that you know you'll land on, like that to me is worth it. If all the pros are there stacked up against what's driving you to make a change.
For sure. I was thinking about that. So I have two sons, and
yes.
we're in Los Angeles, so we live on a hill, and I was out for a walk with one of them one day, and we were walking up this really steep hill. I think he was like 5 at the time. And he kept wanting to sit down on the walk up. And of course, the clock is ticking. We're supposed to be somewhere. We have to get up this big hill in whatever time, and I'm losing my parental patience at that point, debating whether to pick him up and carry him like a log up the hill. And in that moment, we had gotten, I don't know, a third of the way up. And I encouraged him to just look back. I was like, look at how far you've made it up the hill already, and he could see from street level to whatever view he had at that point. And I said, well, what would it look like if we just took 5 more steps? 5 more steps, different view. 5 more steps, different view. I swear to God, it was a moment of parental inspiration. I'm not that smart all the time, but it was so great to be able to illustrate that for him, and for him to be able to look back and see that view. And that's what I hear you describing, is that there were all of these moments along the way in the development of you as a professional that you could look back on them and say, I'm taking all of this into my next destination. And if all of this goes to hell in a handbasket, I always have this to look back on and to turn back to if I need to.
I mean, there's something, there's something about the reason that book, that childhood book, I Think I Can, resonates so much, because, it is the little engine that could. You are your own engine. There's no one else that's going to push you but you to do anything. Truly, that's a constant in anything that you want to do, right? I mean, if you think about it, it's like there's something like kind of profound about the little engine that could. Because if you think you can, you probably can, even though there may be obstacles. It's true.
Amen. If you can't see it first, you can't get there anyway, right?
Right.
I'm curious now, you've had the transition from IDPR into B Company, and now this lovely new opportunity at Spartina.
Yes.
So would you say similar things were going on? Like I see something and I'm ready to let go and move on to the next thing? Like what was the transition from one to the next, from B to Spartina?
So this was, no, I would say no, in that this wasn't by choice. This was an opportunity that presented, right? So that's the umbrella difference. I wasn't looking to leave. I was very, very grateful for B Company, which is the management company. I'm doing this. This is so funny. In the podcast, in the very popular podcast, Smartless, they always say like listener. So I'm just going to say like listener in case you don't know. So ID, which Kelly Bush calls it ID now. It was IDPR. It's now ID because they encapsulate many, many different things. So leaving ID was much more my personal drive to craving something new and a new aspect of how I can contribute to people's careers, wherein I wanted to be involved in all aspects and not just taking the product and making it shiny and telling a story through media, which was essentially my role as a publicist, was to tell the story through press of what my client was trying to do, whether that was launch a show, a film, an album, a Broadway musical, whatever the project may be. And so when I started B Company, I was talk about the little engine that could to build a clientele and to learn about aspects of the business that I didn't know much about other than being an observer, keen observer from the publicist hat. I would watch what a lawyer did. I would watch what an agent did. I would watch what a manager did, and I knew what I was doing. But I always learned by just observing and being on calls with the teams and saying like, okay, I could do that. And then once it became my day-to-day job, I was like, oh, okay, I have questions. Let me ask these questions because I only know my own experience. And so once I got, a year in, I would say like 6 months to a year in of being like, okay, I'm in a groove. I was able to sign business that weren't just existing clients that I had as a publicist, but also really wonderful talent that I'm so proud of, being a part of developing their career and was rolling along with that. And so, obviously we had this global pandemic and that threw everyone into a big head scratching life change. And mine wasn't searching what was next. It was more like, how do I now adapt to what this looks like? What's happening with our business? Who's working, who's not working? What's going into production? What's safe? What's not? What am I telling my clients? How do I feel about this? How can I make people feel better? Who am I turning to for advice on how is this changing everything? And so I would talk to everyone all day long. And then it became okay to start working again with all of the new protocols. And thankfully, I again, and taking a bet on myself, I have really good taste, and all of my clients started working again. And then everyone was doing very well. And during the pandemic, I was lucky enough to have all of my clients working on projects. And so things were, as we like to say, on paper, really working. And I was not unhappy. I was not searching or yearning. I knew what I liked about it. I knew what I didn't like about it, but that's like any job. There's no perfect job where you get up every day. And if there is, caller, let us know. There's always something about work. It's my mom always goes, well, they wouldn't call it work, right? And so I feel like what had happened is that Stephen Colbert, who had been my client for 16 years, I've been his publicist, and we just have always had a real simpatico of thought, idea, process, conversation, comedy. We've always just been really in sync, and I've been through a lot with him, and it's been one of the most rewarding relationships in my career because I feel like I was able to launch his show, The Colbert Report, which was so singular and iconic and important. And then, he took over for Letterman, and we were able to tell a whole new story and introduce him as an individual to people as a human being, not as a character. And so we have been through so much together and really kind of profound in a way and important to me. And when I was at B Company, he was my only client that I still did publicity for because he is, again, singular, and he is his own category of human and talent. And I'm not just saying this in case he listens to this.
Noted.
He knows I feel that way about him. And so we were having a conversation, and Stephen and his wife, Evie, had produced this incredible film based on a show called In and of Itself. And they really enjoyed producing. And obviously he produces every day. He does the show every night. And with that comes so much intelligence on running his team and creating comedy and telling the day's stories and making it digestible. And I like to say he's the aloe vera on the daily sunburn of all of our days, and he cools us all down, and that is producing. But they had really wet their whistle, if you will, on Within and of Itself, which Hulu bought and is just beautiful. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it to anyone. It's streaming on Hulu, and so they really loved the idea of taking this production company, not just as an idea, but as a real entity to create and tell stories. And it was a natural fit that he said, I know you have a job and I know you have all these clients, but we've been thinking about it. And they both approached me and said, like, would you like to run it? And I wasn't looking for a change, but I also couldn't say no to that opportunity for many reasons. I found it initially just igniting and exciting, and it was just a yes, even though there were all the things of like, but I have all these clients, but I'm doing well at this thing that I didn't even know I could do, but I don't want to let people down. But people rely on me. There's so many things, but the yes was so much louder. And I think that the advice, and again, in going back to like empowering other women in making choices and not just running your own businesses, but in making day-to-day choices. If the yes is loud, that is telling. And if something is magnetically pulling you, that is telling. And I mean, I probably said like, well, yeah, I want to do that. Or maybe I'm not I think the thing that makes me kind of good at what I do is that I have no poker face, and you just know what I'm thinking. If I like you, I like you. If I don't, like, you probably know that too. Yeah. There's no subtlety really involved with me. I'm just, I've always just said like, this is how I feel. This is who I am. And so I don't apologize for that, which I think is important too. And I think so many women, we say sorry all the time, and it's just painful because we have to stop apologizing for having a big personality and declaring what you love and being passionate about what you're passionate about, and stop hiding because you should be, but I would say like it was a loud yes, to get back to your question, and thus began well, what would this look like? And what would I do? And how am I going to do this? And we're still in a pandemic. And it was, it was an ongoing conversation until it became real. And then I had to do the difficult thing, which is to depart from B Company, which I built from my gut and from my instinct to do it, and my confidence that I kept building, and my experience on top of experience, because with each experience you build yourself up and you build your own business, and it is like Legos, and you build your own tower. And I was like, wow, I'm going to, 5.5 years in, it was only really just starting, and I had visions for it, and I'm not sad about it, because I know that this opportunity that I am now in is speaking to all the cylinders that are fired up that I was doing there, but using new skill sets, and how exciting too to be in a business for so long and feel like it's so fresh. And so that's also
there's
what
still
I'm
a growth
getting
path,
to.
right?
There's a growth pattern, and again, like I'm sorry, because you probably have a lot of questions, but I also, me, I could talk a lot, but when I'm just saying, like, God, I just want women to raise your hand and say like, I know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know, and I hope that's okay. And not apologize for not knowing things, because this is an opportunity that I am taking so seriously and that I'm so grateful for. But when I don't know something, I say like, well, this is the first production company that I am running, and so I'm going to ask that question.
A superpower of yours. Like in knowing you now for a while, like I think that's if we wanted to boil it down to keys to Carrie's success, like that is something that I have seen time and again with you. And I notice again with women that are in leadership positions or in starting up something new, they're trying to cover off on all of it themselves. I'm totally guilty of that in my own business, where I'm like, I'm reasonably good at that. Sure, I'll do that. Or somebody needs to do it, so I'll take that on. I would credit a lot of your growth, the growth of B Company, in such a short period of time, to you constantly saying, who can I pay for that? Where else? Where's the person? Let me call that person. I don't know. I'm going to ask a question. Like, you have no embarrassment at all about revealing your vulnerabilities and your knowledge base. You're confident in the knowledge base that you have.
That's right.
And you have no shame with like, I don't know it, somebody tell me. And I think that contributes a great deal to your speed and growth. I also think it's one of the things that makes you so attractive to the clients that have come to you and to you as a professional in the business. By being that person, by being vulnerable and showing what you do and don't know, you cut through the posturing that I think can be very prevalent in entertainment and can be prevalent in business in general. And you give people permission to just let their hair down and show up and shine in their own uniqueness, and then be vulnerable in the parts that they need support with.
I think that's really important. I think vulnerability is really important. I also think boundaries are really important. I learned a lot about that in talent representation and creating a safe space for people and a mutual trust, but also like, this isn't your family. And, I made a lot of mistakes too. Like, I like that we're both talking about like, and the reason, all the good things about me, but like, listen, you can't have success without making mistakes and saying, I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I hadn't done that. I would have done that differently. I mean, that's all of us in anything that we do. But I will just say in my career, vulnerability is important. Boundaries are really important. And learning.
Back,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. And learning.
Yeah, no.
I was curious.
No, go ahead.
When you were like at the top of our conversation, we were talking about, women now coming up in this comparative place. Mm-hmm. If we did have a comparative moment right now and you're like, God, I wish I had that quality or that thing that another female leader has, what's a quality that if you could just like suck it up and add it to your skill set or add it to your strengths, what would you want to borrow from somebody else?
Oh my God, just a sense of calm, the ability to like sun salutate and have meditate, like to meditate and to, I wish I was a person who could get up at 6 a.m. and not feel like, oh God, like morning people to me. I wish I had those two things, the ability to be calm sooner. I'm much better. And because I've learned a lot about balance and about what you need for work-life balance. And that's always everyone's struggle. And I hear you, you are seen and heard. But I will say like the ability to be calm, to breathe, to take a deep breath before reacting. I've seen women and I'm like, wow, I don't really know what you're thinking. And like, that's not, I think like a lot of people go like, I wish I had more of what you have. And I'm always like, oh, I wish you didn't see as much as you see sometimes. Because sometimes people look at me and they're like, wow, you said a mouthful. And I say like, but I didn't say anything. And they're like, right. Dawn, you were going to ask me another question. I'm going to take a sip. I'm going to hydrate.
Okay, everybody hydrate. Hydration break. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
To that point,
yes.
How would you describe your leadership style? Like in running B Company, now in running Spartina, 3 nuggets. What would you say your style is?
What would you say my style is? No, I'm right.
Nice
Well, it's also, that's hard. That's a hard thing to do because I think a lot of times.
I think we've nailed one with vulnerability.
Like sure, vulnerability is there. I am empathetic and understanding and open. I think I have the ability to tap into people's strengths and not shame them for not being able to do things a certain way. So I think it's about celebrating what people are good at and this is what it is. Identifying talent in your staff and where can people thrive in what lanes. Different from mine. Because I think if as a leader, you are trying to have a team of clones, then you're not going to succeed. Yep. I think as a leader, what I've learned is finding strengths that may or may not be similar to yours, or actually identifying things that where your team understands your intention, but can fly and soar in ways that you want them to, and by empowering them and celebrating the things that you're so grateful they can do that you can't.
Yeah.
So whatever that's called, that.
You're an empowering leader.
I think I am. And I would say inclusive of community, because I do think that now in my role, it's trying to figure out where we can all develop, create, and then produce these ideas and these projects that we're cooking up here. And so it's, where can everyone on our team contribute and have added value? Because to me, that is also successful of you're a leader who has ownership, but also then hands out ownership to everyone involved. So I couldn't do this if I didn't have you who brings such an intelligent background to the project because you have a specific point of view and experience that I don't have. And that we couldn't do this show without your knowledge of how comedy works and how nuanced that needs to be for a project like this. I couldn't do this project if I didn't have you over there who understands the mechanics of actual production and what we need in order to make this successful with the confines of a specific budget. Like really acknowledging that you cannot do everything yourself.
Yeah.
And you may want to, and I'm a Virgo. And if you're eye rolling out there, you're clearly not a Virgo. But I will say, as a very typical Virgo who has come into her Virgo-ness, I think, like since 30, where everything needs to have a place and everything needs to, I wasn't always like that. I was a kid who was a slob. My mom would come into my room and be like, where are you even? There was just clothes and things everywhere. And then I just really snapped in at some point and realized, oh, I'm so much happier if everything has a place. And so you can be a good leader in that way. But what you also need to be doing is celebrating that everybody has strengths. And everybody is there for a reason. And where can people go home and say, I love my job. Here's why. Because I'm seen for what I'm good at. I'm learning about what I need to know to be better at the things I'm not good at or that I'm not aware of. And that I have things to look forward to, and I'm going to have a growth pattern here. So I think I want anyone who is working with me or for me to feel that way, to feel like they are part of a team, that they are being celebrated for who they are as a person, because not everyone is good at everything, and not everyone is, can do what I can do. But guess what? Everyone who works here can do things that I can't do, and that's why they're here. Because I go, oh, I'm not worried about that, because I know Holly's going to do that. I'm not worried about that because I know Evie's got a great idea there. I know that, Stephen's going to think this is great because he believes in all of us as a connective tissue to then be out there in the world on his behalf with his name on this company. So does that answer your question? I don't know if that's 3 things. That's a lot of things.
It does.
You know me, I color outside the lines. I can't give you I haven't rehearsed. You gave me this.
You're a storyteller, honey. You're a storyteller. It's all good.
I always related to clients who would say like, oh, that interview went so fast. And I was like, listen, not all of us speak in sound bites.
In bullet points. Yeah. Listener, she is pointing to herself. I'm going to scourge over to the side of the road. Let's talk about your Virgo tendencies. So, okay. Listener, if you happen to be in the good fortune of being in the text life of the Miss Carrie Byalick, you can expect lightning fast response time like you have never seen. I have had conversations with many of our mutual contacts, friends, etc., and there's not one among us that doesn't wonder how, when I happen to wake up at 3 a.m. and send you a text because I'm thinking about something that would be beneficial to you, that at 3:01 I already have a response, a photo back. It seems like you are omniscient. How do you manage to return things so quickly? Just in the operations of that and your day to day too, that you're a very efficient person. And I'm curious, what we can impart to others in managing their time, their work, their day, that what's going on over there? Because that's amazing.
Thank you. It's a blessing and a curse, I would say. I think I've always put a lot of pressure on myself just in general. I'm in constant fear of things falling through the cracks, and I like checking a box. I like saying I did it. That person knows how I feel about it. That person knows that I've heard them, seen them, have a thought about it. I like Kelly Bush used to say, touch it once, respond to it, forward it, file it, do something with the thing so that it's in motion. Mm-hmm. I'm one of those people that if there's memes of people's inboxes that have 75 million unread emails, I get I have a physical reaction to that. I can't teach anyone how to do that. I think it's probably some form of psychological, obsessive compulsive to just respond to something. But then I feel like it's handled because I know what it's like to be a very busy person. And I like not having to worry the next day about things that are left over. So if I can be right now, we are having a very thoughtful, specific interview that I blocked out on my schedule. So I am not multitasking during this. You are getting all of me. I will say that I always want anyone who is across from me or who is in conversation with me to feel like I am paying full attention, but I try to have a lot of cylinders going at the same time. So sometimes I'll be in a group meeting or a Zoom and I'll come up with an idea, or you may text me, hey, can we move the meeting next week to whatever? I'll go bing, yes, and so that way I don't have to go, I never got back to her. So my brain and my physical, my whole connection, my synapses are constantly doing a lot at once. And does that trip me up sometimes? Of course it does. Like, I always make a joke, like, if you don't hear back from me, I'm either like at a show, at a movie, or as in Harry Met Sally, like trapped under something big, right?
Trapped under
say,
something
like,
heavy,
we're trapped
yeah.
under something heavy. Right. That's like I'm always like, I'm trapped under, like, if you're, right, that was the best answering machine. Yeah, like, leave a message. because I feel that I feel personally better if I handle something in real time. And I have said to anyone who's worked under me as an assistant or a junior level, whatever, that, like, I do not expect you to be as fast as me, because that's just that's unrealistic pressure. That I am built this way.
Yeah.
I am to blame. No one taught me to be like the fastest texter responder in the world. Like, I have no game, gentlemen. Yes, I'm single. The one gentleman listener. I know this is for women, but if any guy is listening to this, like, I don't have game, and I will. There's no like, oh, I'll wait 2 days to respond to this. I wasn't built that way. There's no like 2-day rule or 3-day rule, whatever that dumb book is. That's you have a question, I have an answer. So what's the game? We're all here for a limited amount of time. What do you need to know? That's the other thing. I just want to handle stuff. To answer your question, I just want to handle stuff. And the balance it's an ongoing challenge of how do I do it all? How do I work out? How do I see family? How do I take care of a dog that I love very much? How do I see friends? How do I see family? It's because I'm constantly trying to find windows to do everything. And there's weeks where I'm like, okay, this week proves impossible, wherein I'm going to not exercise 4 to 5 days. I will exercise 2 to 3 days. I might even exercise 1 day. And then that's about allowing that to be okay and figuring out what else I can do for myself, whether that's like take a walk home or walk to work, whatever it is, to like clear my head that will give me what I get from the other thing. So every week is different. I don't have a by the book, like, this is what I eat, this is when I eat it, this is when it's just doing the best I can every day. And as far as my fast response time, I don't know where that came from. And it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes, like, I'll glance over and I'll be like, oh, look at all those unread emails. I will say, I don't understand anyone who's doing their business from Gmail. This is not a slam against Gmail. What I highly recommend when this was introduced to me in terms of a work capacity is using Outlook, because you can file and I'm sure you could do this with other programs. This is just my own experience. In order to get through a cluttered inbox and in order to be efficient about it, I always sort by person. Because several times a day, I'll keep my inbox in received so that it's a chronological story, and I'll make sure I'm not missing anything if I'm in a meeting or a Zoom or not at my desk for a certain amount of time or not looking at my phone for a certain amount of time. I'll make sure I didn't miss anything chronological. Then when I have a minute or 5 to sit down and go through my inbox, I will quickly switch it to from. Because then I can see, did a client send me something? Did a producer that I'm waiting on an answer? Did a co-person? Did my assistant flag something that I need to do or follow up on? And your efficiency is increased tenfold. This is you asked me a question.
I know, but listener, this is operational gold here. If you're struggling with your inbox, I kid you not, Carrie is a ninja master with this. So we're getting the behind the scenes of how it works for you.
It has helped me in ways where I'm just like, oh, look at all those emails. And then I realize so much of it is, mail spam or things that, or deadline alerts or Hollywood Reporter alerts that I can read later. And I made a file for, like media alerts. And then I'll go through and just go, oh, I care about this. I don't care about this, delete. And all of a sudden you can see the numbers diminishing. And even that soothes my soul, because I know that I've gotten through what's necessary, what's timely, and then I can go back to the other thing and dip back in and know that I'm not missing or someone isn't relying on me for a reply.
I love it.
I also think the need to reply quick is something I have to work in therapy, which I have, which is I don't want to let anyone down, right? So the need to please and that people pleasing thing, which also makes one a good talent representative, also makes sure that people don't feel like, well, I wrote you and you never wrote me back. So I think I probably have overcompensated in my life for not only did I write you back, you didn't even finish writing and I wrote you back.
I've
water
been on the
break,
receiving end of
hydration.
that.
Hmm.
Do you feel like being a woman in the entertainment industry has been a benefit, a detriment, one way or another? Do you think it's had any bearing on how things have played out for you thus far, or the opportunities that you've had or created?
I've been really lucky in that one of my mentors, who I've referenced earlier, Kelly Bush, is a groundbreaking entrepreneur in her own right, and created this business. And I've had I had other jobs and other career making building blocks before Kelly hired me. But I would say my shape shifting of my career and my real solid, oh, this is who you'll be for the next, it was who I was for 20 years. I was a publicist, was under the umbrella of Kelly Bush's company, and she's a woman leader. And
Hmm.
so I got to learn from great women, and interned for Leslie Dart and Lois Smith, who at the time, ran PMK, which was really, when I went to NYU, like the only PR company that really mattered. Like if you were a movie star, PMK
That was your
where you were.
company, yeah.
That's where you were. So it was Pat Kingsley in Los Angeles, and it was, Leslie Dart and Lois Smith in New York. And I got to see how the sausage was made when I was in college, and to learn about what PR was from these incredible women. So to answer your question, like I was really lucky in that, and my mother is a writer, and she wrote for a women's newspaper called The Women's Record. I always grew up with these incredible role models that were all women. So I never had to really go, but I'm a woman. Like, how dare you? I
Yeah,
really
there was
was
never a
always.
distinction that there was something, you were just being you, doing what you did, and you had lots of examples and mentorship from other
Exactly.
women. So you never had a story of I can or I can't because I'm a woman in this industry.
No, I'm very, very lucky. And, and by the way, like to had a short stint at Miramax, and people go like, "Ugh," what was that like? It was awful, but I was protected by the women who ran the department I was in. So again, like you see it in so many people's lives and careers and businesses. I personally was very fortunate that I was
Hmm.
empowered, that I was educated, that I was, taught like, yeah, go for it. Like there was no roadblocks. It was like, this is up to you how successful you're going to be here. And here's what you need to do to get there, plus with who you are. It was encouraged, and I was, I was very fortunate. I worked really hard, and I was very lucky.
You've represented some incredibly powerful, outspoken women. You hire women. Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel is that a mandate for you? Is it very forward facing, or is it just that you find really qualified, amazing women and you're drawn to them, and so you do that? Is it an on purpose choice, or that's how it's worked out?
That's how it's worked out. I've hired men too. I've had men work for me. I'm not, I think it's just, I've hired the best people who are qualified, who make sense for me and what I want to do, and I, the people that I've represented. And then in terms of the talent that I was able to represent, I mean, what a gift to have this stable of clients. And I had, tons of clients throughout the years, and men and women. But if you look at the women that I was blessed to work with, I mean, it's truly amazing. I mean, between, Greta Gerwig, Amy Schumer, America Ferrer. I mean, like you look at these women who have changed the world essentially with their work, and who
100%.
and who have been noticed for shaking shit up. Beep. Can I curse?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Fucking shit up. No, but who have turned heads and won accolades, and who've changed the course of what it means to be XYZ in the profession. And for me to have this much to do with it, to a little bit of a contributor of that is, to that has been incredible. And now in this role as, producing content to try to make people feel better in the world, and empowering all types of people and women all around the world. Like if I could do a smidge just by trying to get something made and having eyeballs on it, then I feel I just feel so lucky, and it's a real privilege to do so.
Who's inspiring you right now?
Oh, well, besides my mother, because that's the first, you said that, and
you know what? Can we talk about, we're going to skirt again and.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you that haven't taken in the full visual of the lovely Carrie Byalick, we got a nail, we got a lip, we always got a strong glasses, we got it's always did. It's always did. And it's amazing. She is to me, you are an icon. And you were raised by an icon, the lovely Marsha Byalick.
That's right.
How has, and I know that you've also gone through some really big things during the pandemic with your mom. What is it about, what does your mom bring to who you are in your leadership expression?
So it's not even like, oh, I'm so beyond lucky or I'm so gracious. No. It's how this woman exists, and then she's my mother, where I get to say like, oh, well, that person isn't real, and then I get to be like, oh, she's real and she's my mother. I mean, my mother is in my head all day long. My mother is laughing at something I read that I think is funny. I hear her also laughing. I hear her say like, you got this. You're halfway through the day. You can do this. You can climb this mountain. Tomorrow will be a better day. Whatever it is, she's constantly with me all the time. And it's always been that way. She's in remission from cancer that was diagnosed during the pandemic, which was obviously quite the experience for all of us, terrifying, and also just like watching a warrior really go to battle, and with humility, and it was something, and strength beyond any definition of what strong is. And so to grow up with a woman who showed me what it feels like to be loved, to be accepted no matter what, to be celebrated, to, talk about you have a skinned knee. It's like the person who's going to make you feel better about that. But also, you fail a test, so you'll get an A on the next test, or you won't, but you're going to be good at X, Y, Z. Just constant empowerment, constant support, constant belief that no matter what, things are going to be okay. I mean, like, to have that person who is your parent, I know is so rare, and who also is just hilariously funny, who is so in awe of my sister and I, and what we've both accomplished. My sister is like a really brilliant psychologist and mom, and just how much work that is. And she makes everyone feel accepted and loved and celebrated. Anytime, you ask me like, well, what women have, it's just like the first, not only does she come into my mind, it's just like, I just see like wallpaper of her everywhere, and I feel I am so just beyond fortunate that that I get to, I FaceTime her every single night. Just, we have recaps of our day, even if sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 3 hours. Like, she is my person. She is my flashlight app that's constantly on. She's a light and a love and strength and brilliance. She's a brilliant writer. And yeah, that's why. Well, what was your question? Like, what women
who in my life you these days?
Inspires me? Yeah. So she's constantly just, you look at like, I'm not in the mood. It's like, yeah, but look what she went. Okay, get up and do it. Who inspires me? I mean, so she's for one, Steven does. I know he's a guy, but I watch what he does every day, and this world is dark, and like watching someone
find the little shred of light out of that is really remarkable.
Yeah. And then being able to work with someone so brilliant and so kind and compassionate is just, it's really, really inspiring. It's why I'm here. People always go like, oh, he's great as he seems. And I'm like, he's better. And people are like, come on. I'm like, yeah, no, that's why I'm here. I keep saying like, that's why I'm doing this. It's so funny. I'm thinking about all the women who help me all the time. You, my therapist, Denise. Truly. Because I'm always like,
we're all in, man.
I know, but I'm always like, God, I feel so much better when I talk to you. I mean, like what you brought to my life and career, and how I raise my hand and go like, wait, what? what am I saying? How am I doing this? How am I forming sentences? How am I trying to get the version of me out there that makes sense? And you're like, okay, let's look at it. And you just make it, you have a good bedside manner. I think, any woman who's strong, who also is kind and compassionate, to me is where it's at. And it's like, yes, be funny. Yes, be strong. Yes, stand your ground, but also like be open and warm and kind and loving. And because that matters. And I think now more than ever, it's like women have to help each other, support each other. We all need to make each other feel like it's okay, even if today it's not okay. I think that there's something about our need to feel like so strong and so tough and so mad all the time. But it's like, it's actually okay to be quiet and to have a minute and to be concerned and then to know that you have a unit of people who are going to be there for you. All of my girlfriends I have such a strong network of friends who work so hard in everything that they do, being mothers. I mean, like just what that takes. And in a time where imagery and, oh my God, my niece Hannah inspires me. She's 16 in a time of Instagram, in a time of euphoria high, in a time of, pop music and crop tops and, vulnerability and sexuality and all of it. And she is confident and compassionate and just a beautiful human. And to be a young woman at 16 and have all of that, I mean, that's a huge credit to, I would say, my mother, my sister, probably me too, but just to be such a kind, wonderful young woman. And just, she gives me hope for other women out there and to not TikTok yourself silly, but to go out and just be people with each other and not, look at your screens and try to identify who you are through what you think is perfect or a version of something that is successful. But my niece really looks in the mirror and she's like, that's right. And she really it makes me feel so good. I'm like, okay, we're going to be okay. If there's more like Hannah Altman, we're going to be just fine.
Thank you, Hannah Altman.
Yeah. Cause I could go on and be like, give you like, Oprah, I mean, whatever, but these are people in my life that really make a difference.
Well, and that's the ones that, yes, there are people that are making dents on a larger global scale with much bigger visibility. But part of the intention in having these conversations on this podcast is, yes, would it be great to interview Oprah and Michelle Obama? Yes. Putting that out there to the universe right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And at the same time, most of what gets any of us through our days are the people that are closest to us and that surround us. And we're not running in that kind of company on any regular basis. So I'm so curious about people's fuel and what lights them up and what gives them hope and makes them feel like, yes, there's a future for ourselves, for our society, for democracy, for the planet. Thank you for sharing all of your people.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many more. I mean, I have just the
list goes on.
The best friends in the world. I mean, I do, I have friends, my friend Sarah, my friend Sharon, my friend Emily. I mean, like, these are all like incredible, hardworking, smart, funny, just, I mean, to have a unit of friends where you can call each and every one of them for, it's just like experts in who they are. And that you have this just giant, you take a leap, you are not without a net. It is something. I am very grateful.
My last question, because I want to be sensitive to your time.
No, I'm the worst. I just talked about, you had like 50 questions and I answered 4.
It was the perfect interview. Everything that needed to come out came out, except the answer to this last question.
Okay.
So imagine yourself in the lovely, sparkly, somewhat trashy Times Square with all of the big billboards surrounding you. And in the biggest, brightest, sparkliest one, you get to pop up a message to women that are in leadership or pursuing a spot in the world. What's the message that you'd like to leave them on the billboard?
Oh, can it be a revolving billboard where?
Sure. It could be a carousel post.
I was like, one thing. I'm just going to, I'm not avoiding this. I'm just, it's an adjacent thought, and then we'll get to the billboard.
Cool.
When I was a publicist, I had a million tasks a day because you could never predict what would need to happen. A lot of times something out of left field would derail your entire day. And then we'd have to deal with everything else that was just as important, but not as important as this thing that just took the train off the tracks. And you would have to go do that thing and deal with that thing and that thing only. And a lot of times, and then again, this is retrospect. This is the age old, if you could tell your younger self, but if I could tell my younger publicist self something, and this would sort of be a metaphor on the billboard. This gets back to your billboard. It would be like, there's always a ticket. And by that, I mean, I would have clients and team members and someone always, a family member or something, being like, we have a problem. We don't have enough seats. We don't have enough tickets to the premiere, to the film festival, to the Cannes red carpet. There's not enough seats in the car. There's not a, and then I would be like, well, now what am I going to do? It was a real like, oh, this is a G5 summit problem. Like there's nothing else can happen today unless I find this ticket. And there's always a seat. You would walk into the premiere and there'd be rows of empty seats because people wouldn't show up. There was a snowstorm. There was traffic. There's always a seat on the plane. There's always an extra room in the back at the restaurant. There's always, so going back to the billboard, because there's always a ticket is something I always say all the time. There's always a seat. And some people laugh and say, I know what you mean. Or there's always a ticket. There's always a ticket. I learned that because what you do is when you project a problem being so much worse than it actually is, you build a narrative that creates so many roadblocks for your own success, because then you can't actually just fix the problem and know it's going to be okay. And that also goes back to what I was saying earlier about, like, I wish I had the ability to worry less and predict problems before they happen less, and not, worrying is a waste of time, someone wise once said. And like, there is all of these little gems and jewels about breathing and worrying, whatever. But I would say, like, there's always a ticket. And in Times Square, that's actually good too, because
the metaphor is perfect.
If you want to go see Hamilton, you know what? Wait online. You probably will get a ticket.
There's always a ticket.
Yeah, there's always a ticket is something I always go back to in my head because of all of the worry that I created that was really a waste of time. And it is something that is a good placeholder for so many other things, because I'm working on something in pre-production now where I'm trying to stop myself from getting ahead 10 steps, because that's not going to serve me. What will serve me now is dealing with today's 4 things that have to happen in order to get to the other things that will eventually be okay from that thing. And so I think there's always a ticket, and you'll have to sort of, call me and ask me what that means if you don't know.
Well, I think standing in the middle of Times Square, you do know what it means, because if you're standing there, chances are you're trying to get a ticket to something. So Just knowing both in the literal and then in the metaphorical sense that there always is a ticket. It's going to be
okay. I mean, that's the same way of saying, like, you're going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time today. It went so fast. It went so fast.
I really hope you got what you needed, because I can talk. We probably should have started this whole thing with, like, Dawn has 20 questions. She will get 3.
I know.
She will get answers to 3.
It all works out perfectly. Truly, like what I'm finding so far in doing these interviews, because, obviously this is a new learning curve, new territory for me too.
Of course. Which is exciting.
It is. It's so good. But I am finding, just like with anything, right? There's what we envision, what we plan, and then what turns up. And I do feel like that as long as I'm standing in the right intention, like I'm here on behalf of women that want to be better leaders. If I'm standing in that place and we have a conversation, especially when I listen back later, there are things that we covered that I didn't even realize we were covering at the time that always make it in. So good. One question, 20 questions, we're all good.
There's always a ticket. See, I was lucky enough to go to an opening night of a Broadway play with one of my clients I used to represent the other night, and I saw a friend of his, and he sat next to me, and he's like, "Oh," and I said, "What?" And he was like, "Well, I was told that my wife couldn't come because there weren't any tickets, and there was this empty seat next to him." And I said, "There's always a ticket." But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, there's someone going, "No, there's only this, and that's it." And I'm always like, well, really? Just come. We'll figure it out.
The thing that's great about that too, Carrie, is that in our lesser versions of ourselves, we're always willing to accept the limitation.
That's right.
But to beat this metaphor to death, if you think about stepping up to the ticket window to go see Hamilton or whatever it is, that person only has so much information. They have a view of a certain slice of the pie. They don't have the 360 view, nor does anybody, nor do any of us. So you get your choice about what you want to believe about the situation, whatever that opportunity is that you're pursuing. And you have to remember that the people who are going to tell you no are the ones that they still only have a limited view of whatever that opportunity or possibility is. So there's always more.
I mean, no means they don't understand, is something Kelly always said. And I was like, what do you mean? And man, did I learn that a lot. Because if you've tried everything and you say, you know what, I've tried everything. Okay, you've tried everything. Have you really tried everything? Because then you could say, I took the extra step or steps to try to make something happen. And it was a little scary, but I got it done because I believe in what I'm saying and I believe in what I'm trying to convince this other person to see and believe in. And if you have confidence that you can do something, likely someone on the other end of that call or conversation will believe it too.
Yep. That's your one person. Just takes one.
It just takes one.
Just takes
Gaga.
one. Gaga. All right, lovely girl. So good to hang with you.
Oh, it's the best hang. And thank you. I'm honored to be your guest and your client. I'm so lucky. I couldn't do any of this. The other secret sauce is if you can get Dawn Andrews to help you run your life and business in life, and then get her. But actually take that out because I don't want to, I need your availability.
I need you at my regular meeting time. Please don't take that time.
Just kidding. If you were only lucky, she's actually booked up forever. But if she wasn't, you could also have one of the secrets to my success, which is Dawn Andrews, ladies. So thank you. I'm so grateful welcome. For you. I am so grateful for you,
Mamacita.
So I just hang up.
Yeah, I'll stop this. You're like, how do I get out of here? Where's the door?
No, I didn't want to break it. I don't want to break it.
Thank you for joining us this week. To view the complete show notes and all the links mentioned in today's episode, visit mygoodwoman.com. Before you go, make sure you follow or subscribe to the podcast so you can receive fresh episodes when they drop. And if you're enjoying My Good Woman, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Reviews are one of the major ways that Apple ranks their podcasts, so even though it only takes a few seconds, it really does make a difference. This episode was produced by me, Brian Marcus, and Kathleen O'Shaughnessy. Thank you again for joining me, Dawn Andrews, in this episode of My Good Woman.